To order. Thank you. All right, first order of business on the agenda this evening, approval of the January 23rd, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? And a second, seconded by Duke. Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. All right, next item on the agenda is public comment. This portion of the agenda is designed for members of the general public to share thoughts on items of interest in the community. By law, board members may ask clarifying questions or discuss procedural matters, but are not permitted to discuss the policy merits of any issue unless it is scheduled for discussion. I do have a list here. How about if we limit it to a minute and a half for each speaker? That should finish us up about 20 after, give us plenty of time for the board to finish the rest of its business. So the first speaker is Diane Blust, and then Ilsa Gregg.
So am I on? Okay. Good afternoon, I'm Diane Blust. I live between Shepherdstown and Harpers Ferry. I'm not a civil engineer, I'm not a utility person, but I do know that if I file false information with the government, I risk a fine or jail time or both. And I'd like to know how you all can file false information. We know what the numbers are for the Rockwell effluent, and your permit application requests something that's, what, a third of that? I don't understand how you can do it. I don't understand how that can be legal. But I just want to let you know, it's no wonder that the people in this county are disgusted with our public servants. I hope we don't find out down the road that you or your families or your friends have benefited in any manner from this Rockwell affair. Your shenanigans just disgust me, so thank you.
Thank you. Ilsa Gregg and then Jay Mansfield.
My name is Ilsa Gregg. My comment is about the recent February 5th change from Rockwell's effluent. We already had the modification, we had the hearing, and then they changed the numbers again. I would highly recommend, with all due respect to your council, seeking a second opinion on this, maybe even a third opinion or fourth opinion legally on this. I think there's nothing to stop them from changing the numbers again, increasing them or whatever. I don't know if they've promised to build their own utility like they did in Mississippi. I don't think that would be a very good idea, considering all of this is self-monitored. I don't know what it would take for this board to choose us. But in the long run, we choose you. We don't choose Rockwell. I think we're a better ally in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Jay Mansfield and then Lee Smith.
My name is Jay Mansfield from Shepherdstown. The county mandates that people receive water and sewer service, but they don't mandate that we receive air that we can breathe. Rockwell has failed. They failed to calm our fears about safety because Rockwell is not safe. 3,300 of our kids will be exposed to their pollution for 12 school years. We'll have 400 bus trips plus 200 plus 400 truck trips within a 3-square-mile radius with 5 schools, thousands of times higher pollution concentration, and 16 times higher population density with all of those children. Oh, and don't forget the 2 major train tracks that cross there in that area. So that's 800 buses or trucks, 3,300 kids, tons of pollution, and over a decade of exposure to that for each and every child. With all this pollution and risk to children, we're going to need another clinic in Shepherdstown to handle the sick kids and those with bus injuries. But never fear. I read in Forbes that Eric Lewis started working very hard to get a clinic in Shepherdstown. And we all know that if you create pollution and you treat kids for pollution, a smart accountant can make money on both ends of that equation. The placement of the Rockwell plant is racist. The Jefferson County NAACP has already opposed rock wool. The people living near the rock wool plant won't have any fresh air, none. You cannot support the safety of our children and support the goals of the Board of Education and allow rock wool to proceed with their development. Put the brakes on this ridiculous monstrosity. Be brave and stand with us. We have your back. Stand up for us and resist all movement forward on the rock wool development. Freeze out these ticks until they leave.
Lee Smith and then Sean Amos.
My name is Lee Smith, and I am a resident of Ranson and a parent. The first thing I'd like to stress is that there are many parents and working citizens who were not able to make this meeting, even though they would have liked to have input on this issue. CTUB is using a number in their WVDEP sewer permit application that's 1/3 of what both the engineer and Rockwool are saying they need for phase 1. CTUB is trying to avoid updating the permit and instead come back next year and ask WVDEP again for the full amount after the sewer is built. That's wrong. If there's an environmental problem with Rockwool's phase 1 wastewater, CTUB needs to know now before the sewer is built. We don't want you to build it fast and worry about it later, worry about details later. We want things to be thoroughly vetted at every stage of this process. Please hold Rockwool to the standard that you would hold any citizen of this county. Please act on behalf of your citizenry and not a foreign conglomerate. Thank you.
Sean Amos and then Tim Ross.
Good afternoon. I'm coming to ask you guys to hold off on this DEP permit for a couple of reasons. Number one is the fact that these permits so often are seen as a box to check. We've all been to these permit hearings by the DEP, and we sort of watch how this stuff goes down. The DEP admits that they are understaffed. We have watched over and over again as these permits go forward and then the numbers change later. At some point, somebody in this chain has to take responsibility for what's actually going to end up at the treatment facility and ultimately in the river. If you looked at the things that came out in the FOIA from their plans that were submitted to the fire department, you will see drains in the floor, drains from rooms that are actually full of all sorts of poisonous things. We do not know where those go. We've watched the numbers change, and we're all going to leave that to the DEP when we change the numbers later, or they will be responsible for testing the water. The truth of the matter is that they can't. They don't have the manpower to do it. They don't have the time to do it. And so we're begging you, before you put this thing through, make sure you know what's going in there. Make sure you know how much is going in there. Don't be another cog in the wheel of boxes that get chucked. And then eventually it ends up in the river or in your treatment facility anyway, because they didn't have the people or the manpower, the time to do it. Please wait and see what this is. Don't be in a hurry to get it done. The sewer's not built. There is no rush. We are begging you to listen to us. These people behind me have spent thousands of hours researching this, trying to figure out exactly what's going down there. Please don't just check another box. Please listen to your people. Do the right thing. Do not submit a permit that you know is not correct. Thank you.
Tim Ross and then Lori Maloney.
Hey, I'm Tim Ross, and I'd really like to trust my government. I'm having a hard time with it. I keep hearing things that are nonsensical, that don't make sense, and I'd really like to change that, all right? Last night we were told that CTUB just accepted the application from Ranson, no changes, just brought it on over. The IJDC FOIA, I've seen lots of emails from CTUB asking questions, making changes. One of them, Wayne Morgan wrote back to Melanie and Kristen, the IJDC loan provided through the WVDO and agreement filed at the PSC indicate that the Rockwool facility is the customer for the sewer line extension. Therefore, I would list one customer. You could consider having a footnote that is understanding in Ranson and Charlestown that there may be additional potential customers located at the Burr West Industrial Park that may connect to the sewer line extension when service is available. So if there is a form there that says one, and you're planning on doing funding based upon many, I think you should change the form. And then I'm not a PSC expert. I know Mr. Hoy is. And I keep reading 5.5, and I know you can't talk to me, all right? but it says the utility upon written request for service in the form of a sewer form number 4. All right, I haven't seen that. I don't know if you've gotten that or not. And I know you can't answer me, but I hope in the next Charlestown meeting you walk in with a sewer form 4 from Rockwool and the group of prospective customers in the same neighborhood. And then 5.5E4, where the cost of the extension does not exceed the estimated total net revenue as calculated below from prospective customers whose service pipes will immediately be connected. I keep seeing numbers. It's down the road, sweet by and by. And Mr. Trainer, I'm really glad you're here because you had a question last night. What if there's problems with the money? Well, I found the email that Mike quoted from, and this is October. Charlestown should have the permit, either major or minor, in hand before the project is bid. Okay? And then without discussion or approval, John took them down the building commission route. Before any authorization to bid is given, you need an acceptable lease agreement and a firm agreed upon repayment structure. Without the defined repayment structure, there's no way to determine what amount is likely to be paid back. These items should be added to the pre-bid. She says, this is Sammy Gee, bond counsel. I agree that it makes the most sense to get bids before this goes back to the IJDC. I doubt this will be on the agenda until January or later. January, Reisenweber, agenda. He threw an extra $1.5 million on it. If you think there's going to be problems with the money, you betcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Maloney and then Nancy Gregory.
Lori Maloney didn't come. Lori Maloney did not get here yet.
Okay.
So
Ms.
I'd
Gregory?
like to know what you people are doing with the information that you've been giving. Are you actually even listening? And I also want to know who you're working for. Doesn't seem like you're working for us with the decision you made yesterday. And we've been spending a lot of our time working on this. And is it a waste of our time? And if I actually said what I'm feeling right now, I would get taken away by the police. I would get arrested with all the nonsense that's been going on in this community. So for the rest of my time, I'm just going to turn my back on you as you have been turning your back on us.
All right, thank you for your time.
I'll wait for my time to be up.
Okay. The next speakers are Nicole Heim and then
Hello, Nicole Heim, Charlestown City resident. And let's face it, this is not just about Rockwool. If you think that this is about Rockwool, you're kidding yourself. This is about a huge, over 1,000-acre, massive industrial park that's going to be going in to that Jefferson Orchards area. We've discovered emails that have said just that that's what the state is planning on doing, which makes sense why the sewer line is so big, is because they want to accommodate all these other users. Once they get Rockwool in the door, I think it's just the beginning of a domino effect, and it could potentially be just disgusting for this area. Secondly, I would say that you really cannot trust this company. I personally have been pulling together screenshots, personal accounts, links to different articles and stuff about all the different lies and misrepresentation that Rockwool's been giving us. I have a document, I sent it to you today, and I will be happy to send it to anybody else, but it's over 70 pages now. And this is not just made up stuff. These are links to documents that prove that a lot of the information that these guys are giving us is wrong. So how on earth can we trust them when it comes to what's going into our sewer? And furthermore, how are we really going to be able to handle an over 1,000-acre industrial park? Can our sewer system really handle that? Because it's going to be going into our stuff. Because that's what's going to happen once we start. So let's stop it now before that happens.
thank you. And finally, Jeffrey Gustafson.
As a manager and assistant for 2 businesses here in Charlestown. I'm concerned about our rates going up for Rockwell sewage. There's this plan for a 900,000 gallon line, yet supposedly we only have 200,000 gallons in excess capacity, in addition to having overflows this year, so it would appear we have no excess capacity if we're having overflows. Rockwell itself will be adding 100,000 gallons a day when full production, and obviously this line needs those other 800,000 gallons to get whatever it's doing paid for. The biggest thing is if there's no immediate plan to expand the sewage treatment plant, how are we even moving forward at this point with adding any additional capacity? We can't keep running sewage into Evans Run and into the Shenandoah and ruining our water and ruining our recreational activities. Thank you.
All right, so that's all the public speakers have signed up. Next item on the agenda, the utility manager report. First item is the request to refer to council the sale of some public assets, utility assets.
Right, so I did, based on our last meeting, put together a brief summary of advantages, disadvantages for the two parcels that we discussed, the Patrick Henry 3-acre parcel and the Tuscaloosa Hills property. So certainly happy to answer any questions on that, but I think the direction was to discuss moving that forward to council.
So I've got just a couple of thoughts. One is on the Patrick Henry parcel, 3-acre parcel. So it talks about, you think it's not likely that there are going to be a lot of potential buyers on that. But we talk about a reserve bid for the Tuscaloosa Hills to make sure that we get a certain value out of it. Would we want to do the same type of thing over on this property as well?
Yes, I think that's a good point, to go ahead and include that. I think with any auction, if you're going through a real estate auction, we can set what we think would be equivalent with an appraisal of the property or value.
All right, so we'll add the reserve, and then the other question was about the appraisal. Will we be doing appraisals for both so we understand what the value of the property is?
I wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The only thing I would say about the vacant property over in, what's the name of that development?
Patrick Henry.
Is that it's a liability. You don't have any use for it in the future. You've used the building out at Tuscaloosa for different purposes. And so, at least I know I'm not a voting member of the board. I'm not a member of the board at all. But I look at that property a little bit differently than I look at the other. From a legal standpoint, it's just the only thing that's going to happen out there is going to be bad. A child runs through there and breaks a leg or something like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great point. I mean, maybe the reserve is pretty low, and you're right. Maybe it doesn't make sense after you've done the appraisal on it. Okay. So we can talk through that, I think, when we get this in front of the council for consideration. And both of these properties are in the city's name, right? They're not in the building commission's name. Have we been able to sort through that yet?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Because, in the staff recommendations, it talks about utilizing the municipal home rule provisions, even though they don't actually sit within the city. Is that correct?
We might want to clarify that with the fact that they are not physically in the city, but I think because they are city properties, that home rule applies to any sale of equipment, property, things like that.
Okay.
We can confirm that.
Yeah.
Might need to confirm that, but I think you're right, but we can get a confirmation on that pretty quickly. I know who to call, I think.
All right, any other comments, questions from the members?
Paul, when we first brought this up a month ago, there was discussions on some sort of a liability, sort of an insurance policy to prevent a hold harmless type. is that also still discussed then, or not?
I think that was a recommendation by our environmental attorney that that could be something that the purchaser would acquire. I didn't include that simply because I know we had talked about incorporating deed language within the deed that would address
Okay. It would, is that
Future.
sort of an as-is, but does that cover broadly enough any types of environmental issues that could be found, I guess, down the road?
If there were underground storage tanks or things like that on there,
Yeah.
you know, gasoline tanks.
Sure.
Then you have an issue and you cannot get rid of that liability. I mean, even after you take it out and you get a no action letter from DEP, or if there was hazardous material, that stays with you forever. And as far as we know, everything was done to decommission the treatment plant properly, and the state did do that. So I think the answer to your question is no. We're not aware of any environmental issues that we could not bond or contract off or insure against.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, that's,
No, those are great questions. Thank you.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other questions? So if not, is there a motion to recommend per staff recommendation that these two items be transferred or be referred to City Council for possible sale of public assets? Moved by Mike, seconded by Duke. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nays. Any abstentions? Motion approved. All right, next up on the agenda, the utility billing agreement with Jefferson Utilities.
Yes, so this is the agreement with the acquisition of the Jefferson County Public Service District for Jefferson Utilities to do the billing at a rate. This is the same contract that we have with the city of when we contracted through the city of Ranson.
okay.
Yeah, so let's make sure. I think as I read through this one more time, so there's this invoicing or collection fee of $350 charged for every bill.
Yes.
That is run through Jefferson Utilities.
Yes.
And again, that's in existence now with our agreement for Ranson. Now that we've acquired the PSD, basically that's the amendment that we're adding to this agreement.
Yes, well, this is a separate agreement for those customers. But it basically applies to those sewer customers that JUI provides the water service for.
So does this end up looking like a new fee then to the user?
No.
It's absorbed.
It's just a cost of.
It's not passed through to the customer.
Okay. Because I realize that it's netted out of what is sent to CTUB, but basically they pay their charge as whatever the charge is. You're reducing that by $350.
We just pay the fee for processing those bills, very similar as we do to City National Bank for sending out our other
So
bills.
we're paying $350 for every bill that they're sending out and managing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the customer doesn't see that. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. That makes sense. And then the other question I had is on the sewer termination fee on page 2. It says $25 sewer termination fee will be applied to each CTUB sewer customer that's terminated. So is this the same type of thing? Then are we paying them? This is assessed to the user if they're
That is assessed to the user if their service is terminated.
And is this in addition to then what's in the sewer tariff? Or
That is consistent with the sewer tariff.
It's consistent with the way, okay, with the city's current tariffs. Okay.
Yes, I believe so. That's right. Yes.
All right. Other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the updated contract with Jefferson Utilities?
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Pearson, seconded by Mr. Tester. Any additional discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? All right, motion approved. Next up, the engineering services agreement with Hatch Chester. task order number 1.
So this, well, I apologize. You should have I have the agreement, actually, the service agreement, the contract for Chester, so that should actually be reviewed first. I don't know that that was sent out, or it may have been sent out in digitally.
Yeah, I was going to
I
say,
can pass that
I
around.
got the contract, I think.
Yes, that was a separate PDF, I think, that Jane sent.
Yeah.
Okay, so the contract needs to be approved first. We selected Hatch Chester through the 5G process in the fall. So we have finalized this agreement. I know Hoy had worked with their legal counsel. So we need that approved first.
It's not on the agenda. The task order's on the agenda.
Right.
So I don't think we can approve, although it was included in the packet, it's not on the agenda for the meeting.
Well, it's the engineering services agreement is the first component of that, the way I read it, with Hatch Chester. And then we would need to approve task order number 1. That was the intent too. We can't technically approve task order number 1 until we have signed and approved the engineering services agreement.
All right, so let's back up just a little bit. So this is the 5G process that we went through to identify the contractors that would provide service for the utility board.
Yes.
So we've gone through that process. We had accepted that, I think, in a previous council, or a previous CTUB meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
We had
So
just
what
not
we-
gotten around to finalizing the contract with them. We had selected 3 engineering firms. So we have the agreement now finalized with them, and then also, then we'll talk about the task order number 1.
Yep, I see what you're saying. Okay.
I'd point out that the agreement is the same, we use the same template, which is pretty much a national agreement that civil engineers use for doing these projects. Every engineer adds a few wrinkles here and there, and those are the ones that I looked at, and we asked them to change something that was very important to me to be changed, and they agreed to take it out completely, and so I recommend, I mean, it's acceptable to me as to form.
Yep, okay, good. So, my general reaction here is, I had the initial reaction, I think, that Mr. Slover was having about the agenda. But, I mean, as I do look back at it now, I mean, it does reference both items. Both the
I'll
agreement
certainly make sure that
and
that's
the
more
task
clear
order.
next
The
time.
word "and" in between, which does sort of kind of,
Yes.
Well, I'm talking through this. We do believe this is on the agenda. Just want to be.
It's not clear, though, and someone's going to speak on that, and it wasn't on the agenda.
All right, well, appreciate that again. We're talking about this as part of the utility board. So, so again, engineering services agreement, Hatch Chester. Just want to make sure, I mean, Mike, do you see that the same way now? I mean, again, I read it as if it was one initially, but I guess I didn't understand that we had not yet acted on the agreement
The
itself.
overarching contract,
Yeah,
correct.
yeah, yeah.
Mayor motion to table it, not by me.
so I think we should discuss the impact if it is tabled here.
Sure. So the genesis of finalizing this, not that
This has been going
should
on
have
a
done
while.
it, we should have done it previously, but we have obviously received the request from Rockwool for a 5.5 mainline extension, which requires us to provide a cost estimate within 45 days. So the importance of, I think, authorizing them to move forward is that it's going to take them several weeks to put together the evaluation and an updated cost estimate for the Rockwool-only option that is required by the Public Service Commission.
So the risk here is that they may not be able to complete this within the 45-day period. We already know, though, that that they had submitted a revised letter to council. And we had talked about whether or not that 45 days was reset. And it's clear that, again, there is a little bit of flexibility on the back end. So I certainly hate to say worst-case scenario, because every time you do that, there is a worser-case scenario. Worst-case scenario is if we take this up in 2 weeks, we basically have lost 2 weeks of an opportunity for them to begin to do the cost estimate.
Yes.
But, you know, how long is it going to take them to complete it? Do you think that, what are your thoughts in terms of the time that it's going to take to complete the project?
They have indicated it would be roughly 3 weeks to put together the estimate, so that does not leave, I'm just looking at the calendar, our response, based on the original request, would be due March 8th, so our next meeting would be February 27th, which would leave a week and 3 days.
So alternatively, we can try to find another time for the utility board to meet. We can try to accelerate the next meeting to take up this matter, so to give them more time. I was going to say, my general thought here is, again, out of an abundance of caution, and you know, I know the community is concerned that we're trying to push things through faster than maybe we should be. You know, it's probably not worth it, I think, to kind of rush this through. Let's reschedule the utility board meeting and take this up if we need to. Again, if we need to accelerate the next meeting of the utility board, I think we'd rather do that than maybe wait for 2 weeks and act upon it and still have, and then have the challenge associated with meeting the 45-day requirement. Yes.
I'll make a motion that we table this agenda item and reschedule a special meeting to allow for the time needed to have this approved.
It's been moved to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. It's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor of tabling, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nays. Any abstentions? All right, so tabled with the understanding that we will try to schedule a special meeting to address the matter. All right, next up on the agenda then is the discussion of the Route 9 sewer project statement. Do you have anything else you want to cover from the utility manager's perspective?
I don't think so. Just as an update, I know we had talked last meeting about the tax notification. We had talked about that being applied to the March bills based on the council meeting. That's been pushed to April billing, so I've updated the statement. It's been posted to all of the websites.
And we agreed to get that out in a statement billing as well.
Yes, so a notice has been added, a blurb has been added to all the bills in March, correct? We did have a lengthy council workshop last night from 5 to about 8-ish. Went through some final questions. We did get another round of questions from Councilman Tolbert, which I've committed to addressing by the next meeting on Tuesday. Spoken with Daryl, do not plan to attend that meeting just because I have prior obligations, but we'll get those answers addressed and see if anything else comes out of that. But
will you be sending those then to all board members?
yes, absolutely. If you want to see them, I can send you the
questions,
the initial request, and then I'll send you our responses.
Great.
Yep. Okay. But any other updates before we?
The only other update, obviously, as I'd sent out previously, we have been experiencing within the past week an issue with the water, a water leak that we have not yet found 100%. We did have a leak detection company come in over the weekend, identified one location in Ranson, so we are ordering the necessary equipment to get that line valved and repaired. So we've been addressing fielding calls with regard to the discoloration of the water, but we've been working with all the necessary agencies to make sure that everybody's taken care of.
So in an email, there was a discussions about whether or not a boil water advisory was going to be going out. Is that correct?
We did not issue a boil water advisory based on the discussions with the health department.
Okay.
But we did issue, obviously a statement, and we're evaluating that. Should there be any question about pressure or, sample results, things like that, absolutely, that is the necessary
And I
provision.
know that I was, in contact with you just regard with Wright Denny. So obviously you mentioned that there was one leak was over in Ranson. So obviously there was another one on this side of, it's on Congressy area then? Is that-
Well, no.
Or is that-
Essentially, what happens is when you have a leak like that, there could be a sediment that enters the line and it travels through the system. So, yeah, we don't believe that there are multiple. It's one pretty significant leak that we're experiencing, and we're actively trying to
So
figure
that's,
that
you
out.
think that's, you think that's where it was then? That's
Yeah,
the main culprit of the leak is out there?
Yes, the leak detection company came and walked and listened to the larger lines in the system, and that's where they directed us to.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's by the hospital, so we have to make sure, we have to really take special care in repairing that line.
So, and one other thing I want to note is that in working with the West Virginia Public Health Department, I mean, we have had a series of tests on the water as well. So it's not just that, I mean, based on the results of the tests are the reason why I didn't feel that there was a need to do a boil alert, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. So testing at the schools, testing at the hospital, other areas within the system, flushing hydrants, things like that. So yes, we're following it very closely.
And the sediment's cleared up. I had it bad at my house. So for a few days, the missus wasn't too happy, but I had no problems with it. I drank the water, took a shower, and a little yellow, but it cleared away. It had been
So
cleared up.
we have posted this on the city's Facebook page as well as the utility website. Again, we've asked people if they're still continuing to experience discoloration.
Yes, please call. Absolutely.
So, we can follow whether this has made its way all the way through the system or whether it's still working its way through the system. Yes.
Even though it was discolored and muddy or whatever you want to say, mucky, we had tested it and it was still safe without boiling it. Is that what?
Absolutely,
So we need to
yes.
make sure the public hears that.
Yep.
Because, it's a fact that we had tested it and it was safe, whether it was mucky or not.
Oh, absolutely,
So,
yes.
yeah,
We
it's
don't take,
important that we did make that statement.
no chances.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Any other updates?
No.
All right, so the last item that we've got on the agenda is a discussion of the Route 9 sewer project statement. And so let me begin by saying this. I don't anticipate that we're going to be doing any kind of a statement this evening. The thought was that if the utility board was inclined toward expressing a statement on the financing options to share with city council, we want to make sure that we talk about that and get that scheduled for the next meeting. If we want to talk about the substance of it, as I've indicated to Kristen and others, I mean, I need to recuse myself because I feel like my role is to carry out whatever council tells me to do. So I think expressing an opinion one way or the other is probably not appropriate for me. So with that said, like I said, I don't want to get necessarily into the subject or into what a statement might say, but is it the will of the group to put it on the agenda for the next meeting?
For the next council meeting?
For the next CTUB meeting, so that it would be acted upon prior to the city council vote on May 4th, or March 4th, sorry, March 4th. Mr. Pearson.
I would like to see the questions that need to be answered, make sure we answer them before we put any statement together. I understand there were some questions come from your workshop last night.
Yep.
Whether they're appropriate for us to make a statement or not, we should see the questions so we can answer them before we put anything together. So again, I think that's important. And hopefully, if we're going to have a special meeting, Kristen, maybe you can have those questions to us by then. I don't think it should be put on the agenda because when are we scheduled to have a meeting? If we have a special meeting, are we going to have a next one is what I want to know.
Well, and I think we'll have to decide how much business there is that we'll
Okay.
need to do. I mean,
Well,
maybe we can cover both.
That's,
I can't see putting it on an agenda until we see what the questions are and how they're answered.
Sure.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I mean, everybody agree with this?
well, we can always put it on the agenda, doesn't mean you actually have to act upon it.
Exactly.
If it's there.
We may have, if we only have one more meeting, we'll have to put it on the agenda just so it's there
We can always
to allow for the vote. Yeah,
Check.
come up with anything. But again, I think we need to answer the questions.
I agree.
I agree.
And I do think, I mean, I think you're asking if we need to make a motion, whether or not we want to make it.
And I don't think we need a motion. Again, I'm just asking the will of the group. So what I'm hearing is, what we'll need to do is see the answers to the questions that council had posed last night, shared with the rest of the members, and then we'll make a determination as to whether or not it should be on the next agenda, or whether there's a special meeting and a regular meeting again. I mean, timing gets to be a little bit of an issue here, as the city council is anticipating a vote on March 4th. So if CTUB were to try to make a statement, it would obviously before that time would make some sense to share with council.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at my calendar. Today is the 13th. Our next scheduled meeting was supposed to be the 27th, correct? But it sounds like we've all agreed probably to having something next week. You know, I think that special, depending on timing of the responses for those questions, if we could have them by next week.
Yes, you'll
we will.
definitely have them by,
Said that-
I'm hoping by Friday.
This Friday?
Yes.
By the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. So perhaps then if we have a meeting a week from today, a special meeting, and we could have those two agenda items put on there. Number one, which is the Chester proposal and the task order. I think that should be relatively straightforward, and then we can discuss the merits of the statement or sort of an opinion.
That be in lieu of or in addition to?
I think at this point, my opinion, we just make it a specialized study for the 20th, and if something pops up on the 27th, before the 27th, we still have until Friday the 22nd to post an agenda. So I'd say hold on to the 27th, just have a special meeting at this point. That's my opinion.
Does that give you the time to do what you need
Yeah.
to do, the contracts and agreements and all the things?
Oh, yes,
And
yes.
the timetable for you to answer Rockwell's requests?
Yes, it'll be a little close,
Looking at the calendar.
but yeah, I think we'll get it done.
I mean,
How many days do you have to advertise before you can have a meeting?
3 days, 3 business days.
I didn't know about this, but again, if you
Well,
can,
and remember, Monday is a holiday, so
so the earliest would be Tuesday, so again.
Thursday?
You might as well have it Wednesday.
Thursday, the 21st, a better day then?
And the council
No,
meets
no.
Tuesday anyway, so it might not be.
right. No, I think we can still do it within the 3-day time
Wednesday's
frame.
fine.
Yeah.
Wednesday,
So-
the 20th is,
Okay.
yes.
So let's go with that tentatively. So it's 4 o'clock next Wednesday, the 20th. We'll get the agenda posted. Again, a special meeting.
Okay.
All right. Then the last item of business is the approval of the bills. Is there a motion to approve?
So
the bills?
moved.
By Mr. Tester, seconded by Mr. Pearson. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, the bills are approved. All right. Is there any other business, any other information we need to share with the board?
Not that I'm aware of.
If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Pearson, seconded by Mr. Slover. Any objections? Hearing none, we are adjourned. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
All right, so I do need